Hello and welcome to episode 161 of Just Keep Writing,
a podcast for writers
by writers
to keep you writing.
I'm Marshall.
I'm Nick.
I'm Brent.
And I'm Will.
All right. And for the first episode of 2025, we are going to dive back into, I guess, are we technically calling this Our Writing is Political? Or we...
I'm going to call it that. This is Writing is Political Part 3, I guess.
All right. But we're going to frame it a little bit differently. We're going to talk about a TV show that is a lot of us have been obsessed with for a while or recently got obsessed with. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. But Nick is going to lead us off. We're going to talk about Arcane, which is on Netflix based on League of Legends. What you got, Nick?
Yeah, so today we're going to cover season 1, and in the theme of writing is political, I just felt like this really just fit what we've talked about before and what we reflect on our own writings and things like that, and the things that we read. This is a different medium. I know it's not writing per se when it comes to a novel and stuff like that, but there's still screenplay writing and stuff like that I want to discuss about this that really makes this show work. Will, I'm going to lean in on you for this because you have more experience than I do when it comes to screenplays and screenwriting, since you've completed at least 3 that I know of. But, interested to talk to you guys about things that worked and didn't work and your perspective on the characters that we're going to talk about. And then also basically the socioeconomics that happened. Marshall?
Can I we don't have to use this, but I'm curious. I came into this late. Is there can we just go around the horn real quick and just, how did you guys come across this show or what drew you to it? Because does anybody play League of Legends? I played it one time way back in the day and I remember when this came out, but it was just off my radar. So I'm just curious how you guys got into it. And we're joined by Gabe as well. So we're just kind of going around the horn right now and really quick, because I hijacked this a little bit. I was curious how you guys fell onto the show. So just a couple words. What do you got?
Yeah, my little brother played League of Legends, was ranked at one point, so I know about it from that. But I saw the trailers that Netflix was pushing out. I'm watching Netflix every single day. So I'm kind of like a prime candidate for that. But my kids are obsessed with Demon Slayer, which has been on Netflix for a while. So our anime section has been blowing up lately, and I think that's around the same time that the trailers were dropping for it.
Cool.
And then word of mouth. I think that's been the biggest one that drove me to watch it.
For sure. Brent, what about you?
I think if anyone knows me, they know I don't watch a lot of things. And there's maybe 3 people in the world that can tell me to watch something and I'm actually going to stop whatever I have going on to go watch it. And LD Lewis is one of those people. And she told me about this show. And so I stopped what I was doing and I went and watched it. And as always, her recommendations were spot on. So
nice. Gabe?
I played League of Legends for years and years and years. Basically that. And obviously after that, just trailers looked amazing. Had to watch it.
So you actually played the game. That's something.
Oh, yeah. For 7 years.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Years. Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Will?
Well, I happen to be on my list of when it premiered, just because I watch a lot of animation. So it came on, and Gabe mentioned it in our writing group those years ago. So I watched the first 2 episodes, but I didn't go back to it until recently. Not because I didn't like it, but, bitch was busy.
Yeah. No, totally. And I actually, it was off my radar, like I said, completely. And then you guys were talking about wanting to do an episode about it. It's like, oh yeah, I did see the trailers. I want to watch that. And then I still didn't. And then I kind of knew this was going to happen at some point. And then my son, Zoe, started watching it. And he's like, Dad, dude, you got to watch this show. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk about it. I'll watch it. And so in 2 nights, I think I just sat in my shed and just binged the whole first season. And I love the stuff, and both my kids are obsessed with it right now. So I appreciate the recommendation, gentlemen. But we can get into it now. I was just curious how people find TV shows and stuff like that, especially with so much to watch. So, all right, Nick, what you got for us, man?
It's them trailers. Well, I don't want to. We could do spoiler heavy or whatnot, but there's two areas I want to focus on. It's character and character development, and then it's the political powers that are built. Let's start with characters, though. There's a lot of them. If you guys need a list, we can provide it in the chat and stuff like that. We may not cover every single character in this one, but I want to know who was your favorite character and why. Marshall, I want to start with you.
I had a feeling you were going to do that.
And then Gabe, and then we'll go from there.
Now, we're just talking about season 1, correct?
Just season 1.
Okay.
Who's your favorite character from season 1 and why?
All right. This is tough. I'm gonna go with my gut, and then I'm gonna come back to somebody else later. My favorite character right out the gate was Vander, actually. There was something about how the community built around him, and that opening scene where he takes the kids in his arms. There was just something about the father aspect of that really kind of spoke to me, and how people went, and how he, like a father, had to go clean up the kids' mess when they screwed up in the beginning. And then there was just something intriguing about the role he played. So I think that's my favorite character in season 1. There's some close seconds, but just off the top of my head, that's who I would go with. Vander. Like I said, there's that kind of found family role that he plays for the community, and I just really attach myself kind of to that. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Gabe?
Holy shit. This is so hard because I have different characters depending on how I'm thinking. Like, as a writer, I adore Silco.
Same.
As a villain, overall, he is so well-rounded, well-written. Yeah, I love him so much. On other aspects, I honestly love Caitlyn, but because of what the genre has done before. I think she is a good subversion of many things. Like, in some parts as a writer, I like Caitlyn in that sense. And Vander, I love him dearly too. So, yeah. Next.
Will, and then Brent. Brent, and then Will.
Where's Will at right now?
Yeah, that's fine. I could go.
Go ahead, man.
So, by a landslide, my favorite character is Silco. Not just because, and see, I
almost said that too. I love it.
I know that he's the antagonist of the story. I know that, but it is hard for me to push him into that true realm of villainy. For me, I put him in the same realm as I put Magneto in a lot of ways.
Oh, I like that.
And so yeah, so I love him because he's complicated. You get to see so many aspects of him, and he does have lines that he won't cross, and I think that makes him such an interesting character. So yeah, Silco. I'm sure we'll get a little more into it, but
we are, because I do not classify him as an antagonist. He's not a villain.
Well, but he's definitely an antagonist. He may not be a villain.
He's not a villain. I won't even call him an antagonist, and we'll talk about that when we get to the political powers and the socioeconomics.
Okay.
Yes.
He's an antagonist because of point of view.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But yeah.
And the show does such a good job at showing everyone's point of view. That's why I have a hard time saying he's the antagonist. He's just another character to me. He does things by means is frowned upon based on the laws that are set, and who is in power looks down on. So we'll get into that one a little bit later. Will, who's your favorite character? And why?
My favorite character is Mel. Because I am only on season 1, so I know maybe in season 2 she has a bigger role. I don't know. I like the way that she kind of sneaks in to be a major player. of the story, especially towards the end. And I really like Vi a lot. They're my two favorites.
Yeah, Vi's a close second for me for sure, and Silco's right there too. But we're obviously going to get back to Silco at some point.
Maybe. So for me, Mel and Ambessa actually were the ones that I was drawn to the most, that I kept wanting more of. Silco is up there, for sure. So for your favorite characters, tell me one thing that this show did in their arc that paid off for you, that just left you with the impression of that character having growth. Let the question linger for a minute, and then anyone can jump in. Go ahead, Brent.
So for me, the moment that I think that was like perfection for Silco, I think in terms of like he's definitely grown, is that moment when he talks to the statue of Vander and he's like, is there anything as undoing as a daughter? And he understands Vander in that moment. He was like, you did what you did because you love these girls, and I'm going to do what I have to do because I love this girl too. And it kind of came full circle. And then I think that just makes the moment when she kills him so much more heartbreaking, because even then he still tells her like, you're perfect. You're not, there's nothing wrong with you. And
wait, that's a season 2 spoiler.
No, it's not. That's season 1.
That's season 1. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
I had to rewatch them all of them back to back.
I know season 1 top to bottom. You don't have to worry about it. I know what occurs when. So yeah. So that for me was the moment at the statue when he realizes that like he's not willing to give up Jinx to get everything he wants, is I think the moment his character arc kind of comes together.
Yeah. Gabe?
I'll jump next because it's just building off what Brent said about Silco. And I didn't realize this on my first watch, maybe on my fourth, but that was more powerful for me because he realized late that he really loved Jinx as a daughter. Because this is another contentious point, I would say, that what makes him an antagonist for me is that he took Jinx in, all that, but he used her as a tool. Yep. Jinx was a tool for him. So that's what makes him an antagonist for me. And when he talks to Jace in that moment, and then he talks to Vander, and when she kills him, he realizes like, damn, I was too late in loving Jinx as a daughter, and then tragedy. So I think all those changes, realizing all those things he realizes, oof, that's so powerful.
Will or Marshall?
Go ahead, Will.
Who do we think? Whose arc did we like? Is that the question?
With your favorite character, tell me the moment where you realized that their arc had paid off, or the moment where you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is why they're my favorite character."
I don't know if it's their arc. I don't know if it was Mel's arc because I don't feel like she had a full arc in season 1.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
For me, I think who actually had a really interesting character arc was Caitlyn and Jace.
Yeah, I like her.
I kind of like how Jace is being manipulated.
Yeah, I agree.
Sameem, can you elaborate on that? How was Jace being manipulated?
Sameem's here. What's up? What you got, buddy?
We're just calling random people now. If you want to answer the question. If not, Marshall, your turn.
Oh, you got this, Sameem. What you got, man?
No, I'm passing it off to Marshall.
Okay. But Sameem's here. Vibing. For the record, he's vibing, but he's here. So if I'm gonna stay with Vander, there's a moment I was trying to. That's why I kind of wanted to go last. I was trying to remember because I've only seen the first season twice. There's a moment towards the end of the season before there's no more Vander, where you see he's he's crossed with the monster, right? But there's this shot where you know that Vander's there and what he's willing to do to help his family in this moment. And you know that beneath the layers of sacrifice and the monster that is on the outside, that Vander's there. And I think that really solidifies his arc as the role, he stayed true to himself and to his family the whole time. And I just really, he made some interesting decisions, but it was all for the good of his family. So I love that about that character.
So as we have our favorite characters, and obviously there's a very strong theme of found family in this show. One thing that I notice amongst the characters is the parental arc, right? So we have Silco, we have Vander, we have Anabessa, and I noticed that out of all of them, Vander is the one. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, and correct me if you see it different too. Vander didn't use his children for any type of power gain or control, which I felt was different. Silco, right, has Jinx, Powder, right, has that relationship, use that. I feel the same way with Ambessa. She's using her daughter for political gain and power, right? And it's very interesting because you see these aspects where all three of them share the same type of love and protection for their children. And then there's this imaginary line, if you will, where 2 out of the 3 are willing to cross. Did you guys catch any of that in the story in the season, or what are your thoughts? Am I off base here?
No, not at all. And I think this goes back to what Gabe was saying too about why I would say Ambessa is an antagonist for sure as well, because of that role she takes. I mean, and I guess what I'm trying to say too is this show speaks to how you raise kids and what your influence on your children how impactful that might be, right? Mel's arc is because of being cast out by her mom, and then you have Silco who takes on Jinx, and then, but it's all at first it's definitely, he is using her as a tool, and again I think that shows the contrast in parenting and the outcome. Vi stays pretty true to herself, because she's so she was raised by Vander. It's a very different path that Silco took, I think, or not that Jinx took from Silco, obviously. Go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
Right.
So I have some thoughts about Vander's way, because I don't think any of their ways were necessarily the right way, because he may not have used Vi, but he put a hell of a lot of responsibility on her.
Yep.
And she carried that through her rest of her life. She felt like he made her feel like it is your duty to look after all these kids and to protect them, when actually, no, it's your duty. You're the father. She's a child. Let her be a child. She didn't get to be a kid. And, and say what you will about Silco, he let Jinx live up to her potential.
Oh yeah.
She became a badass under his tutelage. And the same with Mel. And Bessa may have been a hard mother, but look at Mel. This girl's damn near running this scientific megapolis.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, I don't think any of them necessarily, I don't think any of their paths necessarily produce the most healthy people. But, I think there's something to be said for, especially, I think with Vander, I think like on the surface, I'm sure he loved the kids, and I wouldn't say he's a bad father, but I definitely think that there's a level of responsibility that he put on Vi, and a level of coddling that he gave Powder that contributed to how they came to be, because you see it in the early episodes. Powder ain't right.
No,
like
something's wrong there.
You see it early on, and he coddles her. And so I would argue, I don't think any of them necessarily, they all tried. They all tried their best.
For sure. And I agree with you, right? Like, I think there's no perfect parent out there. We all, and the show is about how to raise kids, right? At the end of the day, like there's that overarching theme, and it shows you the ways that you can get someone to their highest potential. But if you don't do certain other things, they're get the proper help. Jinx is off of rockers, man.
Yeah.
Like Mel's resentful for her mom, even though her mom is what made her who she is.
Well, the one kid that came out right, though, at least in my opinion, the one kid that actually came out right and decent and good was Echo.
Yeah, I love that kid.
Oh, Echo didn't get enough time in season 1, in my opinion. Will?
He didn't, but also we also don't see really how he was raised either. You know what I mean? Like we don't see the day-to-day kind of parenting. We see that one moment in the beginning, but that's kind of all we see. And then we see the results in season 2. But Will's been wanting to say something. Go ahead, man.
But don't you think with Vi, the amount of responsibility that she has is because she's almost like the oldest of the family?
Yeah.
Like I saw a lot of sibling dynamics going there, and Powder, I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but like she definitely reminds me of me in a way that I was the youngest, and I think I was allowed to stay hidden in a way and coddled. And then I got into really a lot of trouble.
And there's really definitely a strong older sibling versus younger sibling and the responsibilities and coddling that comes with it. I think that was that definitely did a really good job with that. What were you gonna say, Brent?
Well, and I think that's why I kind of bristled at Vander a little bit because I am the oldest, and
Me too.
and I recognize that shit. Whereas like you're the oldest, you have to take care of your siblings. Like you have to be the leader, you have to be responsible, and sometimes it's like, well, I just want to go play with my shit in the corner. Like, why do I have to monitor everything that they do? And if they get in trouble, I have to be there to pick them up. And so yeah, I definitely, as an oldest kid, I definitely saw that with. And I think maybe that's probably part of why Vi gets on my nerves, because she triggers some of the things that I see within myself, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Like, go away. Yeah.
No, well, and it's definitely like, I think with Vi and Powder's relationship and just kind of how Powder was the way she was, is she's being raised by another child who doesn't know what's going on. They're just regurgitating what they're hearing and trying to make it make sense. And I think that's part of the dynamic there that really sets Vi off into her own world spiraling with the responsibility and stuff like that. Okay, who'd you hate and why? What's the one character that was in there that you just didn't like, didn't agree with, didn't like their story, things like that? Brent?
So I want to answer this first because I thought about this question, and honestly, I don't think it applies for me because like I didn't have a character that I hated. Like I feel like it's probably one of the reasons I love the series so much. I feel like every single character was complex, well crafted. They played well off of each other. Like there wasn't any character I just kind of like was like, oh, why are you here? Like I felt why each character was there, and I felt each of them added to the story. So I don't have anyone that I dislike. I think that's one of the reasons it's such a great piece of work that like, you know, I may have characters that I don't necessarily agree with that character, but that doesn't mean I dislike them. They're still very well written characters. So I guess for me, I don't know if that question really necessarily applies. So
yeah. I mean, I'll ask the group, does anyone have an answer to that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Well,
go for it. Does Gabe want to go? Do you have an answer?
Go ahead. I'll say it later.
Gabe, you can say it. You can go, Gabe.
You haven't really talked yet, Gabe. You're up.
Yeah,
it's the most thing. Like, okay, it's the same as Brent. Like, it's so well written that to actually find a character that you're like, I don't like how it was written or feel off. Not really. But the one interesting one is Marcus, the police guy, before the third part of the season, because you don't know his motives.
Yeah,
it's like this bastard. Well, first he helped Vi, like hide her, Well, then she went to jail because of that.
Right.
But still, until you get to know why he's doing what he does, you're like, oh, I hate this guy. But then you get that he's being blackmailed by the Kem Barons so that they don't kill his child. It's like, okay, I get it. Go ahead, my man. So that was it. Go, Will.
Not that I don't. I'm gonna say that the writing was so good, I didn't like this character, right? Because I think it reminds me of someone in my life, which is Ambisa, Mel's mother. I don't like her at all. I find her to be. I would have a great problem with her in real life.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I think because it specifically touches a point of someone I know that is manipulating like that in life. So, yeah.
But the way she's introduced, oh my God, it's
I think
good writing.
I would want to write that character. Yeah. But I definitely just don't. I don't really like her at all.
So I guess maybe that's probably where I need definition on the question. Like because when I hear unlikable, I'm thinking about it from a craft aspect, whereas like this character doesn't work. Now are we talking about this character doesn't work, or are we talking about this is just someone I don't like?
I'm talking about preference.
Okay. Well, then I do have an answer for that. Okay.
Because my answer is solely based on.
Yeah, see, that's why I said. That's why I said. What I said. When I hear unlikable, I'm thinking from a craft aspect, like, oh, this character doesn't work within this particular story. So if this is just a preference, then
no, this is preference because I do want to talk about the craft of the characters because I think. For me, I don't like Caitlyn. Caitlyn's well written. She has a good arc. She drives story. I don't like her as a character, and I think that's intentional. For some audience members, like a lot of people don't like Mbessa because of the way she is. But I think she's a great character. I really enjoy her. I'm not like I don't think any of the writing of the characters is bad. This is what's your preference and things like that.
Okay, so then that's so then that's different. Okay, so then that
also,
I have
Mbessa gives me Annalise Keating vibes a little bit.
A little bit for sure, but I definitely think she's probably more ruthless than Annalise. Well, I don't know, maybe not.
Annalise in the later seasons got pretty bad.
Yeah. No, okay, so it's not that I dislike him, but this just one aspect of what he did just makes it so hard for me to like really root for him. And it's the fact that Vander's a collaborator. I can't get past that. Like it's like you're sitting here making a deal with these people and I don't know. It for me, that was almost worse than anything Silco did.
When he does it with the police, you mean?
Yeah. Like he has his deal with the police to keep everything like in order and safe and all that. And I'm just like,
but he was protecting his children.
Well, see,
but exactly. Like, and see, that's the thing. It's like revolution was okay when you wanted it, but when other people want revolution and you have something on the line, now it's not okay. And now it has to wait. And now it has to go through the proper channels. And that bothers me because it feels very much like I don't know. I felt Savika when she confronted him. She was like, you used to have a backbone. And I felt that it's like, if you want to stand out of the way of it, fine, stand out of the way of it. But don't position yourself as a leader and suppress the same things that you know your people have a right to be mad about. Yeah. They have a right to be pissed about how they're being treated.
Yeah, but he didn't have kids. He didn't have kids.
That's what I was just going to say.
That's what I'm saying.
But
so it's okay.
Cool.
Okay to risk it when it's on your terms, but when other people are ready to put themselves on the line and you have something to lose, then it's a problem.
Yeah,
and it's the hypocrisy of that is what bothers me.
I think that's interesting. I think I have other thoughts on that, but I like what you said, Brent. But I also think what else. I think that's part of the reason I like that character, though, is because when I hear what you're saying, but also what other choice did he have? Because if he let them all start a revolution, he'd lose everybody. You know what I mean? Like if they all wanted to fight in the moment, they're like, why don't you fight? And he doesn't. And then they find out, of course, that he, has that deal. I just feel like he had more. You're right. He did have more on the line, but I don't think he was ready to lose everything. And maybe that was a little selfish. I don't know. I think that's interesting.
I just find it hypocritical. I don't know. And I just, because I feel like you've seen it in the civil rights movement where like you had people who wanted to push the envelope on things, and you had people that, oh, well, let's moderate it. Let's integrate in this way. Let's do things this way.
Yeah.
And I mean, even towards the end of his own life, like Martin Luther King realized that, okay, maybe this approach wasn't radical enough.
Yeah. It wasn't enough.
Yeah. And that's, to me, Vander comes off a little bit like the revolutionary elder who can't step aside for the youth to figure out what they need to do.
I can see that for sure. Can I say who I don't like that much?
Yeah.
Like, I love what he becomes after the third episode. But I had a really hard time with freaking Milo. That character drove me nuts. He was such an asshole to that child. I'm just like, leave Powder alone and just fucking shut up. I don't know. And I know he was written that way and I get it, but I was just like, he grated on me in those first couple episodes. Like, dude, shut the fuck up. Leave this kid alone. She's doing. But again, like you guys said, Powder was all over the map, and clearly she's fucked some shit up in the past, and he's just like, I can't deal with this anymore. And I get it. But yeah, he just kind of bugged me a little bit. But I did like what he became for Jinx later. I thought that was really interesting how they incorporated his character even after he died. Spoilers.
Well, and I think that his annoyance is actually a really good like indicator of also the coddling that was probably happening for Powder. It's like,
oh yeah,
I can't, like, I'm telling, and he was fucking annoying, but like upon the second and third watch, I'm like, but he was telling the truth.
Yeah,
like
he was. That's the thing.
The truth for what it was. Like, this girl was not ready. She did not need to be here. She should not be in this world. Like,
yeah, my second watch, I felt differently about him, but the first time I was like, dude, you gotta stop.
Oh yeah,
You're on my last nerve.
The first time.
Sameem, are you ready to chime in yet, buddy?
He's vibing, bro. He's vibing.
I want to hear.
I don't know if
voice.
I have anything like super intelligent to say.
It's all right. But you're here, so we're gonna make you say stuff.
But yeah, I will say, like, when I first watched, I stopped, I think, an episode or two in. And it was because of Jinx or Powder. I can't remember.
Powder at the time.
And it wasn't her fault. It had nothing to do with the craft. It was, I think, having known people who've gone through serious crises and have made really bad decisions as a result. It was really hard to watch. Even before anything happened, I was like, I know where this is going. And I think that's probably like a compliment to the writers, because it was very real and really well done. And like definitely impacted me, I think, probably in the way that they wanted. And I think she remains like a challenging character to sit with in any scene, because you just don't know what she's going to do.
For sure. Gabe, did you say something about this? Yeah, you did.
The one that I hated? No.
Oh.
Well, I think it's
we
Jace.
said hated. I'm ready.
Not hated.
Hate.
I think Jace was the most annoying for me throughout the whole series.
Yeah, I can concur with that. I had issues with Jace, for sure.
He's got the like savior complex thing that's really annoying.
Yeah, you know what? That was so annoying, but it goes back to Vander. You're willing to push something to the edge of its, like, once he had stake in the game, he was like, nope, I'm good. I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's like, what? Like, I felt he was a selfish character in season 1.
I mean, Jace, I think, was just a chess piece. Like, he was just being moved around all all the time, basically. Even by Heimerdinger a little bit, which also I almost rose out of my chair when he betrays Heimerdinger. But that's something else.
That moment, yeah, I know, yeah.
Son of a. But yeah, Jace.
I don't know. Do you feel like Heimerdinger, though, was also not letting the revolution happen?
Oh, definitely.
He was letting his memories of the past make him, I think, a bit too rigid in terms of like how people could be helped. And I think, and I actually, it's a good point, Will. I think he is kind of like the other side of the coin with Vander.
Mm-hmm.
Like this holding on to like, okay, this bad shit happened in the past, and I am almost certain it's going to repeat itself if you like young people don't listen to me, and I'm not going to let you have any agency. Like you listen to what I tell you, and I mean, and I think I think you have more sympathy for Heimerdinger, honestly, because he's such a cute little character.
Yeah.
Like if it was like an old scraggly man with like some snarling beard or something, you probably wouldn't have the same reaction the moment he gets betrayed. I think because he does look like a fuzzy, cute animal, it triggers something different for people.
Well, and he is adorable, but it's funny because I think kind of what you were saying earlier, Brent, he plays a different route than Vander does because he plays the give it time and give it time card a lot. I'm old. I know my stuff. Give it 10 years and then we'll look at this again. And people were like, dude, we're not going to all live for hundreds of years, bro. Like we have to do something about this right now. We can help people now. And I think that, but I felt that betrayal scene too. I was like, ooh, that's rough, but he had it coming the way he was being, in my opinion. But
yeah, Heimer represents the humanity having short memories, short because I think, well, I mean, I'm a bit biased because I know the lore of League of Legends and I know what Heimerdinger experienced in outside of Arcane. And he was right. He was like, if you let this through, this is going to happen, and it happens. So it's a bit of like, yeah, in history, we have short memories.
Yeah.
Of many, many, many things that we could talk forever about. So go ahead, Will.
It reminds me of what our Democratic Party is now. They pushed for Hillary. She lost. Then instead of actually with Kamala, instead of embracing an actual liberal path forward and igniting young people, we automatically tried to play the centrist role and to do politics as normal. When people are deeply wanting change, they actually want vision. The idea that our establishment is the same as it was prior to 2016 and probably even before that is gone. People want change. And I think that's what's really being represented in Arcane now, and why this all kind of falls under writing is political, because it's mirroring a lot of things that are happening in our society right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, for however right Heimerdinger may have been, he still lost control. If he had approached it differently, if he had maybe tried to meet Jace and Victor and the rest of them where they were at, and maybe work on something in the middle, they maybe could have found a path forward. But he was just so rigid and like, I know what's going to happen. You guys, I'm right, you're wrong, and still lost control anyway. And the same with Vander. You guys need to listen to me. Just hold on. Like, let's keep the peace. We don't want to fight these guys. He still lost control anyway. So, you know, at some point, if you're in the role of leadership, to Will's point, you have to actually be attuned to what the people that you're trying to lead want. And I think what Arcane shows with those two characters is that you can either be a leader that listens and treats your people like adults, or you can be a leader that decides you know what's best for them. And in both of those cases, they decided they knew what was best for them and lost control lost control of their leadership positions.
And they're trying to placate to the middle. And right now, you in Arcane, just like with what's happening with us, you can't anymore. You have to have a bold vision of what the future is going to look like and stop letting fear be the ultimate cock blocker.
Which is a great segue into the second half of the show that there's not a full half anymore. But writing is political, right? You guys brought it full front. I wanted to establish a baseline on characters because I did think the characters were written so well. Whether you like someone or not, I think craft-wise, like Arcane is one of the best ones out there to look craft and look at. I mean, they pulled off Powder and Jinx, man, like to a point where people love her. Like she's one of the best written characters for a lot of people. But what I really find so interesting and fascinating, and I think I was talking to Gabe about this too, is just the power dynamics that are within this world and how people move through the world and how they view things. So earlier in the episode, I said Silco is not an antagonist. He's not a villain. And in this show, I think it really shows who the villain is based on point of view and who you agree with the most. So I want to know from you guys, from your point of views and how what you glean from the show, who is the controlling powers in each of the factions. Okay, I'll say faction, but we've got the upper class and then we've got the lower city, right? And then we have where Echo's from as well. But curious on who's controlling what and who.
So isn't control though, it's a dance, right? You have the upper part who is suppressing the lower part of society, but then there's this quote unquote criminal faction that's doing this dance with the upper part to try to make some type of living for themselves and the people underground, right? So like, for example, I'll just use real life for me. When people would say crime doesn't pay, crime actually pays really well. It does, right? It's like when I was in a ring of stealing cars, it paid really well. What didn't pay was
Allegedly
getting caught. I was a child, okay? Like I was a kid. You're trying to survive under these conditions, and then when you make deals with either faction, both to me are kind of at stalemates, where the people who really could use help and who are innocent are the ones really, really struggling. And that comes all down to class. And that's like the downworlders. It's like the everyday person who just wants to make it is really the ones who are hurting the most, where the upperclassmen might have struggles, might have some like pain points, but they're not as dire as those people underneath.
Yeah. Well, and I think they really highlighted the power dynamics really well. Where, I mean, did you guys find yourself cheering for a certain section more than the others? I would assume most of us are cheering for the revolution to start. But does any side catch your guys' eye that made you cheer for a little bit more?
So I guess for me, I didn't really break it down into like that kind of black and white with this story. And I felt like a lot of just like, which for me is, I think, why this story works so much, is that it's very muddled and very like true to a lot of systems where you have a variety of people operating in it in a variety of different ways. Like Jace came into his shit with the best of intentions. Like he actually wanted to really help everyone, but the political system he was in only allowed him to help a few, right? Like it's just like that one lady who was giving that speech, and she was saying black faces in high places will not save us. And talking about that just because someone who is from a lesser position in society gets into a higher position of power doesn't necessarily mean that that person's going to be able to bring the ladder back down. But you also had people like Silco, as much as he was about Zon and building this nation and having their own thing, he also didn't mind poisoning his own people with drugs to get there. And so he wasn't a perfect revolutionary. And when we talk about Vander, he wanted the best for his people, but he didn't mind collaborating with the law enforcement of Piltover to try to create what he thought was peace. So I don't necessarily, it's hard for me to think of like necessarily rooting for anybody necessarily. It was just more so like, I felt like I was just watching the society and I was just getting to kind of sit back and observe it. Like it was hard for me to, obviously, of course, I understand like Zon more than anything in terms of like, these people deserve better than what they've got. But if we're being real here on a global scale, all of us are Piltover. Like, so there's that aspect of it too. So I don't know. I guess I'm just rambling a little bit, but I felt like I didn't really pick a side. It was just more like observation.
I'm going to go Will, Sameem, and then Gabe, you keep putting your hand up and down. So you're after Sameem.
This is why I think Echo is one of the best characters. And
I
feel like he really represents a lot of what's right about people. Because he did his best in a broken place to create a place of beauty and kindness. And you see him wanting the kids to be kids as much as they possibly can. And it really does kind of remind me of seeing pictures of kids in war zones who are still trying to play and still trying to have fun. And I think when someone has the compassion to create something like that, is probably showing us what the best of humanity actually is.
Oh, I like that. Sameem?
I was just kind of curious if I'm remembering something right, because I don't remember common people in Piltover. All the characters I remember from Piltover are like on the council or they're on the police force. But and then I feel like for like the lower city, I feel like I get a flavor of everybody who's there, but I don't get them for Piltover. And I'm wondering if that's intentional, if that like upper middle class folks don't want to rock the boat because they have it good, and so there's intentionally like an absent character.
Well, I kind of well, I mean, I saw to me that's the power dynamic. Who are the powers at play, and who's trying to get power? And I think that's why we didn't see it. I believe is later on you can see that, but that's what I took from it. It was, well, the people in the upper class who are protected by them don't really care. They just don't want to see those people, is the way I took that.
Well, I thought Jace was kind of not necessarily rich, but he wasn't like, because didn't they even
say like a middle family?
Yeah, he was like a middle class family.
Yeah, Caitlyn's mom was kind of like, oh, this is like a favor that we're taking this guy on. Like, it's like he's from okay family, but not from like a great family.
Which is why he's the only exception.
He did something great, which is why we're taking him in.
Yeah.
Right. And you do see there aren't any characters outside of Jace, I would say, but there's mention of the Piltover folks, especially in the explosion in the first episode. You see people running, you see people like affected by you know what I mean? But you don't get a sense of how they feel about where they're at. You know what I'm saying? Because it seems like, or at least visually and story-wise, Piltover's a pretty swell place to be. You know what I mean? And as long as the people below don't come back up, they're going to be okay. Sorry, I said something before Gabe. Gabe had something to say. earlier.
No, go ahead, Brent.
Well, what about Marcus? Because I was going to say, like, maybe, like, I got the vibe from him that he wasn't particularly well off. Like, it was part of the reason why he took the bribe from Silco in the first place. And,
Yep.
I would add Grace into that too. I really like that character.
The teacher of Kate.
They were
Yeah.
like
Teacher
part of
police
the
woman.
like military force, right? Or like
Yes.
the police force.
And so that kind of represented that other aspect of that part of that life too. You know what I mean? Of like, where does the military stand with all of this too? I thought her arc was actually really interesting, as short as it was. But
well, yeah, because she was trying. She was one of those. I think she was the probably, and well, not until Jace gets it kicked in his head. I think she in the beginning was like that character that kind of was like, I see you guys, what you're going through is kind of fucked up, but we're trying to do what we can to keep the peace here. So like, work with me here.
Yeah, work with me. Let's try to figure this out rather than she wasn't necessarily a boot ant kind of person. She was like, we got to figure something out, which is why I kind of like that character too.
Victor, you could throw into this category as well.
Yeah, I love Victor.
Someone who I think he's the one character we really haven't talked about, but I think he's a great character. There's a lot more to him in season 2, which catch that episode when we talk about that. But I think his personal plea was the one that spoke the loudest for me, which ties back into he wasn't an upper class person. He was just someone trying to do something with selfish and unselfish intentions and things like that. And I just really like this story. So we're coming down to the wire here. So I got to cut everyone off and I got to ask another question here. Sorry, Gabe. I know. I got to keep it under control. Otherwise, we're going to go over that time limit and I'm going to get yelled at.
We're going to keep it at the time.
So with everything that we've seen in season 1, I want to know from a craft perspective, what did you take away from season 1 that you would like to try to implement in your own character building and arcs, or in your world building that you've seen in this show? And we're going to go around the horn. I'm going to go Gabe, Sameem, Will, Brent, Marshall, me.
I can go last. Go ahead. Someone else.
I called you out. You don't get
gives an order, and then Gabe's like, "No, I'm gonna go last."
No, that's not how this goes, sir.
Okay. So this ties perfectly to what I was gonna say before. So there's this. I'm gonna share the YouTube video. I've talked about this on a previous episode. It's called the Great Overlap Technique that Arcane uses to make it so deep and layered. There's few themes. There's like 5 main themes throughout the whole series, and you get to explore them so deeply. Like before, in the political part, Zon and Piltover are just like the wrapping to talk about things, and it's all about contrast and why they show the bridge so much. The bridge appears like 10 times season 1 and more times season 2. So this quickly, the Great Overlap Technique is one theme you explore it through all the relationships. So you get parenting, you see Vander, Silco, and Bessa, Heimerdinger, Jace's mom, Kate's mom, Benzo, with different characters. Then you have the guy from Piltover, the scientist from Piltover, the scientist from Zon, with Victor and Jace. You have the scientist from Zon, you have Victor and Singed. Then you have all those overlap, exploring one single theme with all those characters. So that is an extraordinary way to touch on so many ways, because sometimes, maybe more so in a novel, you want to talk about 12 different themes, but it's better to go with fewer themes but explore them deeper. And this Great Overlap Technique is that, using character relationships and dynamics and intersectionalities to explore one or few themes. So I think that's the main thing that I got from Arcane. And I will link the video. It's spectacularly good. It's so useful for any writer.
Gabe,
Next.
put the link in the chat before we go, so I can throw it in the show notes. I got it up.
Yeah.
Sameem?
I mean, probably really similar to what Gabe said. I think the layering of the like socio-political class dynamics that are going on, I think I found really challenging to find a way to represent all of what I want to represent without it being like really tacky. And I think they do a really good job of like, this is the reality for these characters, and it's not just like a preachy thing for me to, or for the writers to like put out there. And I think they layer that in really well with all the interpersonal problems that and motivations and whatnot that the characters actually have. And it feels very messy whenever I try to do this. But watching how they did it, it all, like, even when it is intentionally messy, feels really, really well done and very thoughtful. And so I'm excited to watch that video Gabe mentioned. So I think I could learn a lot from it.
Well,
Okay, I'll go. I guess I'll go because I want to. I would say everything I think Gabe and Sameem said about like the socioeconomic, because in my new novella, that's definitely going to be something that happens. I think character dynamics. I think about the found family. And I think it goes back to our earlier point about how naturally or unfairly the oldest gets a lot of the responsibility of the younger siblings. And I think that is really fascinating, because I see it even in my own family, not just with my siblings, but also with like my nieces and nephews. The oldest is kind of the one who has to kind of cater to everyone's needs. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. And also I really like how the magic is explored in Arcane. It kind of almost takes a backseat, I feel like, in season 1, because it's more mysterious of what's going on, but it's there. And I find that really interesting. So I'm interested to see what season 2 is going to give us with that.
Well, I can't wait for you to watch it. Brent?
So I try to really think about this question because I'm not necessarily sure like it did any one thing like new to me that like I haven't seen really done well elsewhere. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, this is a new lesson for me. Like I've seen all these things done well like elsewhere before. So I don't know but if there is one thing I guess that I was like, oh, very clever is how Mbessa is actually was being used to establish new plot points that were going to be explored later. And I think they did that in a way to it could have been very obvious. It could have been very like, oh, okay, we see what you're here for, but it was very subtle. So yeah, so I guess that was one thing I think when I watched the first season, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Also, actually, no, I take that back. Episode 3. Episode 3 is probably the episode for me where I was like, this show's different. Because I watched the first 2 episodes and I was like, oh, okay, this is fun, whatever. Then episode 3 happens and I'm like, oh. and so, yeah, I let me take back everything I said. This is what I took away from it. Be willing to let natural consequences happen in the storytelling. Like, don't always try to fight for plot armor for people. Like, if a natural consequence of an explosion is people are probably gonna die. Mm-hmm. So let the people die and then see where the chips fall. So it was very early Game of Thrones in that way, where like let natural expected consequences happen. So yeah,
I'm with you on that, Brent. Honestly, I watched the first 2 episodes like, oh, this is good. That 3rd episode wrecked me both times. It's worse the second time. I was watching with my family and I'm just like, I'm a freaking mess and I've already seen it. So as far as craft wise goes, I've been this 2 weeks I had off from work. I've been kind of trying to get back into the habit of reading. I know I need to be doing some writing, but I want to read more because before I get to where I need to go with my next works, I want to do things better. I want to do things. So as far as Arcane goes, And I'm reading right now. I'm obsessed with Adrian Tchaikovsky right now. I'm reading the third book in the Final Architecture series, and it's like it's insane. It's a sci-fi space opera, found family. I need to be able to figure out how he does this so well. And I think part of it is what Arcane does so well. And like Gabe was saying, is showing those themes, showing multiple characters POV, what they're experiencing and what they're bringing to the table. And what that does is at the same time show more of the world. Not only the connection between the characters, but where these people come from, why it matters, why that particular faction or location or starship matters. You know what I mean? And that's what I get from Arcane is how do I show that found family the best that I can? Not that I want to wreck my readers, but I want an episode 3 somewhere in my writing one day where somebody's like, God damn, dude, that is fucking cool. Right. Anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where I'm at. Will, you were going to say something?
I think speaking of, there's this craft book that I want to recommend. It's called The Secrets of Character by Matt Bird. I think a lot of the things that we're touching upon, Matt does a really good job about how to build those characters and like what you can do with them. Just if anyone wants to like read, but also like read a craft book that kind of remind us of those things. It's really good. I was going to recommend it to Nick, actually.
I'll put a link in the show notes for that one too.
Thank you, Will. You'll have to explain why later.
Oh, I will.
So I'll answer this one too to end it here. I think this is one of the few things that I've seen where found family isn't the best answer to someone's problems. I know it's a great theme. It works a lot of the times, but I feel like with what happened with Vi and Powder, like the whole found family thing, almost like it hurt Powder in the end, with the way she was brought up with Silco and stuff like that. And I think for me, it's okay. Like it's what I'm learning. It's okay to take a dynamic like that and make it not work.
Or not work for that character.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's all about
not work for that character.
It's all about who will bring out the best in you and make you survive. Because you know what I think a thing with Powder is too, is she had already abandonment issues come up in the first episode that I think as a parent, Vander, like taking them on board, that really should have been addressed. That's what I think his biggest flaw was, of kind of helping her work through abandonment and not feeling like enough, because that haunts her through the whole entire season 1 and maybe season 2. I don't know. I haven't watched it.
For sure. And the argument is Silco is the better father for Powder, right? Like it's happening on our chat right now, right?
I disagree.
And I'm going to say this: Silco gave her more stability to be her.
Silco didn't tell her she was broken. That's the difference between those two. Powder and Vander and Vi and everyone else made her feel like she was this fragile petal that was going to break at any moment. And then when you tell someone that, they built that perception and then they built their reality around it. Silco never told her that. He told her, "You're perfect. You're fine how you are." So,
but he was manipulating her using.
I don't think he was manipulating. I think he genuinely connected with her. Yeah. I think in that moment in episode 3 when he hugged her, I think that was genuine. I don't think that was manipulative.
Well, there was a hesitation.
I will fight you. I will fight you next episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can definitely continue this conversation. I'm gonna pass it to you, Nicholas. Don't worry.
I was going to say, if you want to continue the conversation, catch us on season 2 about our favorite characters from Arcane League of Legends. Brought to you by Netflix.
And this has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing. You can find us at justkeepwriting.org. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to reach out to any of us on our social medias, and please jump in our Just Keep Writing Discord channel. Links to all of that is in the show notes. Lastly, please support our show by going to patreon.com/justkeepwriting. We offer daily writing prompts, early access to podcast episodes, and much more. Thanks for listening, and just keep writing.